Hi, my name is Penny, and as usual, I'm here to talk about some bookish things. Specifically, I wanted to talk about the top books that I read in 2019, but since I read 250-ish books this year, I've decided to split it into genres, and today we're going to talk about ones that are primarily mysteries or thrillers. There are a couple in here that have paranormal aspects, or something going on, something strange, weird going on, because those are the kind of things that I like, but they didn't quite fit into the fantasy or science fiction categories because they're definitely more mystery thriller. So we put them into this category, but I still think we can call them all mysteries or thrillers. So I'm going to go through my top 5. We're going to start with number 5, which was Where They Found Her by Kimberly McCreight. I actually read this for Spookathon, and I just picked it out as a library audiobook because it was available and I needed something. And when I read the synopsis, which is just about how they find this dead baby in the lake and they don't know what's going on with that, I wasn't particularly excited about the synopsis, but actually I ended up really loving this. We're primarily following this writer who has just started out as a journalist. She's trying to prove herself on this story about this dead baby that they found in the lake. And we're also following this younger teenager whose messed up mother has gone missing. Now, often I don't like books that are kind of just about a bunch of screwed up people, but what I really liked about this is that there were just so many mysteries going on and everything was interrelated, and it just slowly revealed things, and at the end there were just so many reveals. You were finding out what was really going on, and then you were finding out who was responsible, and it was just whew. The ending was intense and I just couldn't stop listening to it because I had to know what was going on. There were some things I guessed and some things I didn't, which I think is kind of how you always want it to go. You want to feel that satisfaction of having worked some things out, but you also want some surprises. So I think this book did that really well. I do often really struggle with finding thrillers that I enjoy, but this is one that I like. So if you know more like this, I would love those recommendations. Then number 4 is actually a YA mystery, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I also read the second book in the series, The Vanishing Stair, and I am now holding out for the third and final book of the series, which is being released in March next year. There are just so many open mysteries that I cannot wait to find out how it's all going to be wrapped up. We follow this young girl named Stevie who's going to this school for gifted students. All of them kind of have a different interest or specialty that they're studying. Stevie is really interested in true crime, and she wants to solve the murder that actually happened at the school 50 years ago when the daughter and the wife of the owner of the school were kidnapped. But at the same time, new murders start happening at the school once she gets there, and so she's trying to solve those murders as well. There's a lot going on. It definitely is a YA mystery because our main characters are all very young and there is some kind of school relationship stuff going on. So if you are a more adult reader, you might not enjoy that as much. But another aspect of the story is that Stevie suffers from quite bad anxiety and she often struggles to talk to people, and I thought that part of the story was really well told. There are lots of riddles and clues because the criminal known as Truly Devious, he left a ransom letter and it's all written in riddles and rhymes. So if you like riddles and clues, then I think you would like this book. Then number 3 is more of a horror thriller, and that is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. So in this story, what happens is people start seeing things, and then once they see these things, they go crazy and violently attack people and eventually kill themselves in really violent ways. It's definitely an intense book. If you don't like violence, you won't like this book. But nobody really knows what it is that people are seeing and what's causing them to do this. Everyone who has survived the initial outbreak is hiding in their houses, and they only leave the house with their eyes blindfolded. Primarily, we're following this girl named Mallory through 2 timelines during the initial kind of attack, and then a later timeline where she has 2 children with her that she's trying to take down the river to a place of safety. This book is also being made into a Netflix movie, and I watched the movie first, and I do think there's a very similar feeling between the two, so I think that was very well translated into movie form. It's very scary. When I read it, it was all stormy and windy and rainy outside, and it made me think that these things that people are saying were outside my house, and I did not sleep particularly well that night. But it's a really spooky read, but I really enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it if you like spooky reads. Oh, so that one was one that I got from the library. That's why I don't have it. A lot of these I got from the library, but I do have the number 2 book in this list, and that is Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. It is a really beautiful book, which is, to be honest, this was a cover buy. I bought it purely because I thought the cover was pretty, and I had heard some people say that it was good as well, but primarily I bought it for the cover, so it was lucky that I ended up really liking it. It is a little bit hard to tell you the plot of this without at least spoiling a little bit of the story. We follow this girl who has had some kind of falling out with her friends, but now after a year or so, she is getting back together with them. But while they're all together, there is a car accident, and then they end up stuck in this time loop. And they can't get out of the time loop until they can all come to an agreement on something. There is also, as part of this, a bit of a murder mystery. So you're trying to work out what's happened with that, but you're trying to work out what's happened with that while you're stuck in this time loop. I really like stuff that messes with time, so that's why I really liked this book. But I did also enjoy figuring out the murder mystery, and along with that murder mystery is some quite thrilling aspects, because you don't know if some of the people she's stuck in this time loop with are some of the people who are responsible for the murder. I think if you like really weird time stuff, then you would definitely like this book. It's actually a pretty quick read, so there's no excuse not to pick it up, really. Then, the number 1 book in this list I actually don't have at the moment, even though I do own it, but I lent it to my sister, and she hasn't given it back to me, even though she did read it, because she read it in like 1 or 2 days after I gave it to her. Which goes to show that she really liked it as well. I think I read it in just a few days as well. I actually read it at the start of the year, and it kind of blew my mind to think that it was actually this year that I read it. So I felt like I've been liking this book for a lot longer than that. But it turns out it was just this year. So the book I'm talking about is Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. This is a really highly rated book, so it really shouldn't be a surprise to people that I enjoyed it, and probably a lot of you out there who like these kind of books have already read it. I am also hoping very soon to watch the TV show with my sister, so that will be exciting. So if you haven't heard about Big Little Lies, basically you're following a bunch of mothers who all have children in this same kindergarten class, and there's a couple of older children around as well. Each of these different mothers has a drama going on in their life, and there's some conflict between some of them. And then you're told right at the beginning that someone dies at this trivia night at the end of the book. And so the whole way through, while you're finding out about what's happening, you're trying to guess who it is that gets murdered and who it is that's going to be responsible for this murder. But I think what really makes this story is just that the characters are really relatable, and you find yourself growing quite connected to them, or at least I did. And as you grow connected to them, it makes you worry even more about who is going to die. Is it going to be one of these women that you are really rooting for? There's also a storyline where some of the children in the kindergarten class are being bullied by another child, and you don't know which child it is. So that kind of feeds into the story a little bit. I just thought the ending was written in such a way that it was so satisfying. I really enjoyed it, and it was just a great experience. I think actually I also read this, I remember now, I read this during a 24-hour readathon. So I read it in a single day. And sometimes 24-hour readathons can be a bit of a slog if you're reading a book you're not enjoying that much. But when you're reading a book that you're enjoying as much as Big Little Lies, just sitting down and reading it in one go is easy and such a great experience. So I would definitely recommend picking up this book and just binge it. Just read the whole thing in one go. This is such a high-rated book, it's very unlikely you wouldn't enjoy it. Even if, like me, mystery thrillers don't tend to be your favorite genre. Anyway, those are my top 5 mystery thrillers that I read in 2019. Do let me know if you've read any of those books. What did you think about them? Or are there any other books that you would recommend to me based on the fact that I enjoyed those ones? Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're having a really wonderful day, and I will see you next time.